In this video, we'll examine the visible spectrum, which is a smaller spectrum inside of this larger one, which we call the electromagnetic spectrum. Let's read about that here. The 7 types of electromagnetic waves are arranged in a spectrum, and that means in a certain order. So what is that order? You remember? We start with low frequency waves with large wavelengths, like radio. Move up, frequency goes up, wavelength comes down until we finally arrive at the far end with very high frequency, gamma, and very short wavelength. So they're arranged in order in that way from there to there. It turns out only one of those 7 types of waves can we actually sense on our own. For instance, you're standing in a room and a radio waves go by you. Are you going to hear the radio? No, you'll hear it if you get a radio in your hand. I'm saying here without aid. The only one we can see, sense without aid, of course, is visible light here in the center. We can definitely see visible light, can't we? We can. And it's a critical wave because, you know, human beings use sight so much. If anybody is listening to this has a dog, you might notice they use their eyes less than we do. They use their nose, their scent. We don't as much as they do. Light is critical to us. So visible light is so important to us for sight that it has its own spectrum. And here it is, blown out here. These colors from red to violet. Now you'll have to know these colors in order from this end to that end. But that's easy because we have a guy that you're about to meet through a silly picture more useful for 3rd graders, but I still used it. Mr. Roy G. Biv. So if you memorize this, Roy G. Biv, that goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, which is really a blue, it's a deep blue, violet. Roy G. Biv. If you remember that, you'll remember the colors of the spectrum from left to right. Now remember we talked about a minute ago how the EM spectrum went from low frequency high wavelength to high frequency low wavelength. What do you think? You think perhaps the smaller spectrum right here for light is going to do the same thing? Sure it is. It's going to be organized the same way. Again, low frequency, large wavelength, to high frequency, high wavelength. So red on the left, Roy G. Biv, red has the lowest frequency and largest wavelength. It's like the radio waves of the EM spectrum. Up here, the gamma waves of this spectrum with the highest frequency and lowest wavelength, smallest wavelength, is violet. So it's arranged exactly the same way. Before I show you a little more about that, please note your code, your video code is visible. All right, so let's bring back the larger spectrum. We have the smaller spectrum inside of it, visible. And you know how I've written down here, I'm going out low frequency to high frequency. Look what I've got in order here. I've got radio is the lowest frequency, there it is. Microwave next. Next is infrared. And then we jump into the visible spectrum, see? Red is your lowest frequency color, then orange, then yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. They're right here. And then after we're done with that, keep going up in frequency, we next come to ultraviolet, don't we? See it here? I didn't mean to do that. See it there? Sure. So after violet comes ultraviolet, and then X-ray and gamma. See how it fits right in there? So if you were ever asked what wave has the next largest frequency to red, you would say red, okay, large frequency is down here in that direction. The next largest is infrared. In fact, what's interesting here is infra, that prefix means under. So there's red, infrared means under red. It makes sense? Yeah, that's what it means, under red. And over here, ultra means above. So violet's here in frequency. Right above that, in frequency, is ultraviolet, over violet. That's what those 2 things mean. A few quick questions we got to do. We got about a minute to go. So let's see here. Get my pen ready. If I got time. Oh, don't rush too much and screw up. All right, here we go. Can I get it done? Which has a greater wavelength, orange or blue? Larger wavelengths in that direction to our left. Larger wavelength is going to be orange, right? It's down here. Which has a lower frequency? Lower frequency. That is also down that direction. Lower frequency has got to be indigo, yellow. Which has a higher frequency, red or infrared? Higher frequency is up here on the right. So that's going to be infrared. I got one more time for one more question. Which has the longest wavelength? And that's going to be down here again. That's going to be red, isn't it? Bye.